Welcome, everyone, to this introduction of Center for Innovation's new e-learning platform, EmpowerED. I'm Penny Cook, Chief Culture Officer for Center for Innovation. As we bring the Greenhouse Project and Pioneer Network together under the Center for Innovation, our new platform is designed to educate care partners and others. And to start, we've developed something that we think is an essential learning for those in all types of organizations: the Person-Directed Living Certificate. Next slide. During today's hour together, we'll share some statistics about e-learning as a context for why we're excited about our platform. We'll discuss the logic and evidence behind our approach, and then provide you with the firsthand experience of seeing the platform for yourself and hearing from someone who's used it. So a few housekeeping reminders before we start. Please use the Q&A function on your screen to type in your questions, and we'll be answering those at the end. And please save the chat for comments and conversations between yourselves. You'll be sent a recording of the webinar along with the slides after we end. Now I'd like to introduce my colleague, Marla DeVries, the Chief Learning Officer for CFI, who will be presenting today along with Carla Oliver of Lifestar Living and Ella Lawson, also from CFI. Hi, Marla.
Hey, Penny, thank you. So I'm super excited to be here. I've been with the Greenhouse Project for over 10 years now, and I get to talk about one of my favorite things, which is learning. And one of the things we're going to be doing, and this is a reminder to Carla and Ella, I learned this on a podcast that I thought was a nice little way of introducing yourself. So rather than giving you my big bio, I'll keep it to 6 words. So it's 6 words or less. So I am a lifelong lover of learning and growth, and you'll hopefully see some of that enthusiasm come out as we talk about these concepts today. And we're specifically going to talk about e-learning. And so I wanted to start off with a poll on your experience with e-learning. So Janet, can you launch that poll? We're going to do a number of polls today. So it's that first question. How satisfied are you with e-learning at your organization? So you get one choice. I think that second question actually is a holdover from a previous presentation. So you can answer it if you want, but it's not as relevant to this content. So give you a moment. How satisfied are you with e-learning at your organization? From very satisfied to very dissatisfied, or we don't use e-learning at our organization. And I'll give you a moment to do that. I can't see percentages, Janet, so you tell me when we've gotten a good share of people participating. I'm going to call it probably good time. So if you could close it, can you share the result? Okay, so kind of a mix. I would say over 50% are either somewhat or very satisfied. We've got nobody is very dissatisfied, so that's great. And we've got 24%, so a quarter of you that don't use e-learning at all. So that's really helpful information as we launch into this. And I'm going to talk about e-learning, but I think a lot of these strategies are good for just learning in general. So here are just some basic e-learning statistics. These are not healthcare specific, but it just gives you some context of what's going on in e-learning. And I think as you look at particularly those stats on the right, you'll see that e-learning makes good business sense. E-learning is likely here to stay, and as a sector or as a component of kind of the overall learning and growth of people, it's likely to just grow. If you look at the statistics on the left side, you see that, the vast majority of organizations are using e-learning for professional development. And 94% of online learners prefer to study at their own pace, which probably is not surprising for many of us. So before we get into specifics around EmpowerED, I wanted to share with you a little bit of how we approach learning and what some of the research says about learning. And I found this diagram, which I find to be really useful in helping to understand how a learner goes through this process of learning something and then applying it. So this logic of training comes from courageous training. And I'm just going to go through the different components pretty quickly. So the first step is you have a learner, and it's a learner who lacks something, whether that's a skill, it's a knowledge-based gap, or it's an attitude that we want to shift, right? So there's a need for an intervention. And so the learner then attends or participates in that learning intervention. And that can be an online training, it can be an in-classroom, it could be something much more informal, it could be kind of a one-on-one intervention, but there's some kind of learning that takes place. And then there's that third step, which is they gain mastery. So they gain that new skill that they're able to do proficiently, or that knowledge, or that attitude shift. Now, right about here is where I see that a lot of current trainings kind of stop there, right? We have a need, we have them go through the training, they have proficiency, and we kind of check the box. And so this 4, 5, and 6 that I think I want you to look at your own organization and say, how well are we doing at these things? So number 4 is really the application. The person uses that new skill, knowledge, attitude effectively in the workplace. They're able to apply that learning. The 5th is that application produces a result in their own behavior. And then the extension of 5 into 6 is that result adds value to the organization. So when you think about value to the organization, it could be it increases employee retention, it increases elder or family satisfaction, it has a positive impact on QIs or QMs. We see, improvements in clinical outcomes, whatever it is, there's this value to the organization. And so when you're thinking about this for your own organization and the application of this logic of training, you need to think about number 6 before the learner ever gets to number 2, right? We've got to really begin with the end in mind in terms of really being able to maximize training. And this graphic is really very aligned. If you've been on other webinars or classes with Greenhouse, we have a couple mantras around education. The first is that learning is a process, not an event. And the second is that learning is a whole organization responsibility. It's not just the responsibility of the trainer or just the responsibility of the learner. It really involves all components of the organization in order to be successful. Second, just to share, so value, I love this statement. Value does not come from exposure to the training, but to the performance change that it leads to, right? It's not just about getting someone through the training, but about the outcome, the performance that is as a result of that. I'm trying to move through this content quickly, but I'll just tell you in all transparency, I took a deep dive into some of the research on learning and growth, and it's pretty fascinating. And one of the things I found that's very aligned with how we approach learning is Holton's transfer of training model. And so, and this has been there's been a number of studies following that has refined this somewhat, and I've got that in here. But these are the three components when you think about, right, that stickability and how do we really get the most out of training to get to that number 6. There's three main components that Holton found. The first is all about the learner themselves. What's their motivation to transfer the experience of training into their work environment? So motivation of the learner. The second is really how we design the training. Is it designed to be able to transfer into application? And then that third component is what's the climate that that the learner is returning to, that they will or won't be able to apply the content. So I'm going to drill down just a little bit more. So the first one is learner motivation. And it talks about that, really looking at, they're going to be more motivated to learn if they believe that it's going to have an impact in terms of how they're able to do the work, that it's going to better the organization. So if you look at the bullets, they're motivated because it's going to improve the work. They're personally committed and have job satisfaction. So when you think about learning and training, I would say there's no silver bullet here. There's no one exact way to do something, and there's no like, this is not going to solve any workforce challenges. I believe it's a key strategy, but it's not necessarily, it's not the answer. So it's really looking at comprehensively, what are we doing in terms of understanding how committed people are, how satisfied in general they are with their job. They also need to believe that their efforts are going to lead to rewards. Now, rewards could be monetary. It could be recognition. It could be increased autonomy, the ability to have more responsibility. Any of those things could be part of rewards. And then the last is the expected utility. So what that means is it's relevant to their needs. And when you think about adult learning principles, we talk about good adult learning principle is that it's respectful of the learners. It takes into account what they already know and the expertise that they already bring, and it's relevant to their needs. Nothing turns off people more than if they feel like, I'm just going through the motions of this class because I have to, but it really doesn't have any bearing on what I do in my day-to-day job. So that's all in the category of learner motivation. Then we get into this idea of transfer design. So transfer design is the training designed to have that transfer of application? So you look at some of the bullets there. There's the immediacy of being able to apply the knowledge. So there's a lot of research on there about learners need to be able to, once they learn it, it's not like, well, in 2 months, you might be able to apply this content. It needs to be something that relatively rapidly afterwards, they're able to apply it, and they're able to see practical ways that they can apply that learning. The principles theory, there's many different ways to design content. How we have used the principles theory, which says that we take principles and concepts and we embed those, we give those kind of as, I'm talking a lot with my hands, it gives this foundation on which learners can understand kind of this framework, and then they have the ability to apply that to many different situations. So we're going to show you a demo of EmpowerED in a moment, and you'll meet Liz. So Liz is an example of an elder and different scenarios that someone might experience with an elder. You don't have Liz at your community, but you have other elders in which the learners are going to interact. And so the principles theory says, can we ground people with these concepts that then they can take and they can apply to their own situations. So that's transfer design. And then the third element that Holton talked about is this climate, the transfer climate. And I want to read the second half of that because it talks about when you're thinking about climate, you need to think about it in terms of having situations or consequences in organizations that either inhibit or facilitate the use of what's been learned in the training back on the job. That's kind of the evaluation tool. And when I read that, I thought immediately of one of the studies that's been done at the Greenhouse Project through the Thrive Research Initiative. And one of the conclusions of the researchers was that the greenhouse model gets eroded or reinforced one decision at a time, which to me is very similar to inhibit or facilitate. And it's this idea that there's kind of not this neutral zone, that we are either leaning in greenhouses, we're either leaning into the model or we're leaning away, or in any culture change initiative. And in transfer climate, we're either creating the conditions for application, leaning in, or the climate, the conditions are actively working against to inhibit the application. So some of the things that you can do to increase the climate to be able to transfer the knowledge is, are you providing cues so that the learner can apply? So it might be reminders, it could be text, it can be, simple signage in employee only areas. Do we have consequences for applying these new skills and remediation if they're not being applied? So if things are no different, whether I apply the knowledge or not, right? What's the incentive for me to do that? And then finally, it's the social support. And there's two key players in that. So there's the peers, and then there's the supervisors, and what the supervisors do and how engaged they are in this learning process has a direct impact on how much the knowledge, the skills, the attitude is transferred. So I'm going to pause right here and ask Janet to do the second poll, really looking at these three different facets from Holton, and see just where you're at. So which of the following aspects of Holton's transfer of training model presents your greatest opportunity for improvement? So is it the conditions contributing to learner motivation, more around the design of the training itself, or more about the climate, and I think particularly the role of managers and supervisors in assisting that application or facilitating the use of that knowledge? So I'll give you a moment to decide for yourself which one is your greatest opportunity. And Janet, when you see a good portion of people that have done that, you can go ahead and close the panel or close the poll. All right, so I would say that these results are probably not all that surprising. So almost 30% said it's around what are we doing for learner motivation. To a lesser extent, far lesser, 11% said it's about the design, and 61% said it's about that transfer climate. So that's good awareness for you to say, where do we need to spend our time and attention? So this next slide then applies the two things together. So it takes the logic of training and Holton's transfer of training model and gives you some good questions that you can ask yourself, kind of depending on where your greatest opportunity is. So is it about, have we set expectations, right? Do people know going into the training? Have we engaged them in pre-learning activities to kind of prime the pump. Is it clear when they go into a learning session, whether that's in the classroom or e-learning, is it clear when you come out of it, here's how you're going to apply it? Do they believe that they can apply the knowledge? How immediately can they apply the knowledge? How clear are the principles, like really what that foundation is, so that they can apply it to different situations? What are those cues? What are those social supports? And what's the business or organizational outcome that the training is going to support? Can you clearly outline this? And so we will send you, I think Penny mentioned, we'll send you these slides, and this can really be your roadmap for training going forward. All right, so that's your little lesson on education. So let's jump into specifics around EmpowerED. Like all of you, Greenhouse and CFI did the COVID pivot. We had been conducting our training, our education as live in-person sessions. Either people would come to our office or we would go to different sites and deliver education. A good chunk of our education had been train the trainer. And so when we made our initial pivot, we learned all about Zoom, and we did instructor-led training, still trained the trainer, but we expanded to more direct to learner, really just to meet the needs of our partners who needed more support from us. We also, during that time, we did internal and external research to really understand what are the training needs of people going forward. And so we did a series of focus groups to really understand. If you look at the column on the right that talks about both self-paced study and live expert instructor-led training, that is a direct result of the feedback that we got from our focus groups, who said, we don't want just self-paced learning. We see the limits of e-learning when it's just that. There was kind of this, we want to be able to see the whites of their eyes to see that they're getting it. And so that's where we've bundled together that instructor-led and that self-paced module. We also did external research to really understand what's out there. What are the different platforms? What's the different content? What do people like and what they don't like in terms of e-learning? So EmpowerED is, and you'll hear these terms a lot, probably engaging in interactive content with that immediate practical application. So really drawing on what we learned from Holton. It's compatible. We've also included, so when you think about the engagement and just the social aspect of learners, where we learned that 94% of people prefer self-paced learning, that doesn't necessarily mean that they want to learn in isolation. So there are forums so that you can really hear from other people while you're going through that self-paced learning. And I'm going to keep us moving along. I do want to read this this quote because we do have, as part of all of our courses, manager and leader specific modules. So the understanding or the hope is that managers and leaders can receive additional training to know not only what people are learning, but how they can reinforce it. What are those cues they can give? What are those supports? What's the follow-up? How can they learn? How can they use this learning to make sure that the application happens? And so the bold says, all other variables being the same, the group members who were oriented and supported by their managers naturally indicated a significantly greater change in their behavior and in the way they transferred their learning to their jobs than those who were in the group not supported by their managers. It makes perfect sense, but I think it's worth just hearing, because that's, I think, as you all indicated, over 60% of you said, oh yeah, that's our greatest opportunity for growth. So specifically, want to talk about one of our first course that we are launching, which is the Person-Directed Living Certificate. It's grounded in Greenhouse core values and Pioneer Network principles. Here's some of the benefits. So based on our experience with the greenhouse model and Pioneer Network providers, you see what's possible. Person-directed living, when it's applied, and when it's applied to really address the beliefs, the behaviors, and systems of people, it has the potential for greater clinical outcomes, increased satisfaction, higher census, and lower staff turnover. We'll be getting into more specifics of the content, but it's been developed in a badge system. So there are 4 badges, 12 modules, and they're short form modules. So really to meet the needs of today's learners in long-term care, we wanted to make them short form so they can be done in small increments. We also heard that having a certificate and being able to walk away from a class with a certificate is very important. We have that live online facilitated session, and I've already talked about the manager only badge. So here's just a quick preview, and you'll get a little bit more of the content when Ella goes through the demo. An emphasis on learning, on engaging and interactive. You cannot just sit and click through next with this content. It's really built on the learner being an active participant. We do have short video content, but it is not a video-led course. So this slide is an example of a sorting activity. So just looking through, is it this or is it this? And it's a drop or drag and drop. I mentioned Liz. So Liz is one of our, I'd say our content experts. And she guides a lot of the lessons through this case-based learning. And through that process instills principles that then the learner can take out and apply to their own work environment. And then I've mentioned the practical application. So it's that here's the things that you can do immediately to move forward. So that's just a little preview of what we call PDLC, or the Person-Directed Living Certificate. I want to bring on Carla Oliver, the VP of Assisted Living Services at Lifestar Living. So Carla, let me stop sharing my slides a second. There you are. So welcome, Carla. Glad that you're here. First of all, introduce yourself, and then you can do that, short form, 6 words or less, to describe who you are.
I am Carla Oliver. Thank you for having me. And I would say I'm a loyal, genuine, passionate, meticulous, driven manager, if you want to say, in the senior living, and passionate about culture change.
Well, I would say all of those things are true, based on how I've gotten to know you over the last couple of years. So tell us a little bit about Lifestar Living and your role in the organization.
Okay. Lifestar Living is a professional service organization out of Venice, Florida. We currently are in 2 communities, one on the east coast of Florida and one on the west coast of Florida. And I am the VP of Assisted Living, so I am responsible pretty much for compliance and programming within our assisted living area.
All right, wonderful. I wanted to flash that slide up for a moment. So in general, describe what you're looking for when it comes to staff training resources. So in particular, I would say e-learning, but you can speak more generally as well. So what are you looking for?
I would say first and foremost is alignment of beliefs. Is it something that we are believing in? And then the engagement, not just interactive, but engagement, and having what the staff has learned is it immediate? What are they taking from the learning and being able to use on the job right away?
Nice, nice. So that immediacy that I've been talking about.
Yep.
So you were Lifestar Living was part of an original pilot. So when we were in the development phase, we did a pilot with different organizations to test PDLC. So what was that experience like for you? And I think if you can think about it in terms of, you as the leader and administrator, but then also what it was like for the learners, and then for the organization itself. So that was
Okay.
I think that was like January, February, I believe.
Yes, it was.
Okay.
I would say, as the manager or say the instructor side of it, what I loved about it was watching the learners get on the discussion page, and watching how they've gone through a session or a badge or an area, and then being able to comment and being able to see what other learners were stating, but you were able to watch to see, are they really getting what the content, where we want to go? Are they moving in that direction? And staying engaged and watching how they were actually going in and commenting on other learners. So that was exciting on my side. The learners, just having them as they were finishing the badge or content, to being able to say, aha, now I understand where you're trying to take us. And, a lot of times we talk, but for the learner to sit and see it and see the examples and, kind of more concrete, it made the difference for the staff.
Nice. And I'm showing a couple of the, you talked about, those forums and the ability to make comment and then comment on comments. So I don't know if you had a chance to look at them while I was scrolling through, if any of them caught your eye. I think these are all wonderful comments, and they went through the first module. So it was person before task, and it was understanding ageism and stereotypes. So I don't know if any caught your eye in particular.
The program, the third one, of saying that it reinforced the person-rich experiences, and for them to understand it's getting to know the resident, truly knowing them, instead of just their medical condition. We talk about that all the time, but for them to actually see it and hear about it really kind of made a difference. Because I always use, when I was in the building as the manager, when you have a staff member come in and say, gosh, that resident is, they're always complaining or what have you, I would always send them back and say, I'm going to give you a week to come back and tell me something you learned about the resident beyond they're grumpy or they don't like the way the bed is made or what have you. I want you to come back with something concrete that you learned about the resident, to try to take away the negative, or they're always demanding type of thing, and but they're sick, when they're really not. And that reinforces the personal knowing and really getting to know our residents.
Right. So it's that shift, kind of that attitude shift, as well as then that deep knowing gets at that kind of knowledge aspect. So you started the full certificate program now. So what are your impressions so far?
I like it. I find it very engaging. I feel that, unlike a lot of e-learning platforms that are out there, you're right, you could hit return, walk away, come back. It's about the pre-test, the post-test, where some people are really motivated about that patch, you know, that they earned a badge. And so it's kind of fun to watch the enthusiasm and seeing, hey, I'm getting a badge and talking about it. But it has good flow. If you get interrupted, you can go back to it, but they're not long modules. They're I don't want to say useful, but short enough that it's not pulling someone off the floor for hours to complete. They can do a badge in an hour. So if we have downtime, put them on the iPad, put them on the phone, they can use it and be able to get useful content.
Right. Yeah, they can do the whole badge, or they can even do just one of the modules in a much shorter amount of time. So depending on what works for them. So I'm going to launch, thank you for that, Carla. I'm going to launch another poll, and then I'm going to have Ella come on and do the demo. And while we're gearing up for that, I would encourage people, if you have questions about anything you've heard so far, feel free to put it in the Q&A. We will get to that momentarily. So what aspect of e-learning is most important to you? Is it engaging in interactive content, short form modules, the ability to earn badges toward a certificate, having that instructor-led live session, additional badge resources for leaders and managers, or those interactive learner forums? You have to choose one. So if you had to choose just one thing that you could get in e-learning, which would be most important to you? We'll give it a moment for people to respond. I'd say there's no wrong answer here. So, all right, just over half said engaging and interactive content, followed by the interactive learner forums, and then the short form, the ability to have that kind of micro learning, the small bite-sized learning. So thank you for sharing in that. I want to bring on Ella Lawson. She is our resource development specialist, and she, along with Erin Washington, who's been our e-learning consultant and been with us every step of the way. And before we opened up the doors, I said, you know, do you want me to refer to you as the goddess of e-learning? And because that would be appropriate. So both Ella and Erin have been very instrumental in bringing this content to life in, as we've mentioned, in an interactive and engaging manner. And so, Ella, I'm going to ask that you introduce yourself and then take away the demo.
Hi, everyone. It's so nice to have you all here today. I said that I was a seeker of joy, creativity, and knowledge, and I really hope that comes through in the demo that I'm about to show you right now. So let's get started. Okay. Thank you all. We're going to do a brief tour of EmpowerED so you can see what it's like to navigate the website and get a short introduction to the PDLC itself. So we're going to start by taking a look at the learner experience. When your learners log into the system, this is what they'll see. There's a model and assessment overview in the center of the dashboard, as well as a place to show overall progress in the course, as well as updates from the course game. So learners earn badges and points as they complete learning sections and post on the discussion board. And right here, they can see what points they've collected and how they're doing on the leaderboard. And as we've talked about, these features can generate a lot of enthusiasm and excitement around the material. And we can show you here more about those levels that learners can reach and how each badge connects them to more points. Now on the modules tab, learners will be able to see the badge that they're on for the course, and modules must be completed in order. So only the first section is available and the rest are locked until learners have completed the previous one. When learners get started, they'll see the welcome section and have a short video that provides a brief tutorial and introduction to the PDLC and covers everything about the course. It explains how to navigate EmpowerED and complete badges, and it really makes it easy to get started and makes learners feel comfortable with online learning. After learners watch the video, they'll turn to the pre-course survey. And completing this survey will enable you as a manager to learn more about the skills, knowledge, and attitudes of your learners. At the end of the course, learners will also take a survey so that both you and they can see how they've grown over the course of the PDLC. Now, once learners have completed the pre-course survey, they'll begin the content for the first badge. Unlike typical e-learning courses, there aren't any slides or passive watching of long videos. Everything here is engaging and applicable to daily life at work. So we're going to take a moment to watch and see how interactive this certificate truly is, and take a look at a few of the activities your learners will encounter when they take the PDLC. They'll be engaged by short videos and insights from experts in the field, like Barry Barkin and Dr. Liza Behrens. Learners will also encounter interactive exercises that reinforce learning objectives and outcomes in ways that are both visual and written to meet the needs of different sorts of learners. They'll have knowledge checks, like this example of a hotspot activity. And they'll also encounter flip cards. Learners will be asked to reflect on their own experiences, as well as apply new ideas and techniques. We've made sure that the activities are varied so that learners can get feedback right away based on their responses. They'll be asked to recall and apply new information and to learn and grow as they move along through the PDLC. Now, we want to give you a chance to interact with the course as well. So as we talked before, this is Liz, and she's a part of activities throughout the course. She represents many of the elders that you and your learners encounter every day. Each time your learners encounter her, she will be the one teaching them how to help her and other elders live a truly person-directed life. So we're going to take a look at this scenario. I'm going to pause on the questions, and when I do, I want you to answer in the chat or just to yourself what you think the right answer is, and we'll see how the activity goes. So this one is about putting person before task. It is evening, and Liz needs some help getting ready for bed. For each choice in this scenario, think about how you can respond to her in a way that is person-focused rather than task-focused. Liz says, "When you walk into my room, how should you greet me to show me that I'm more important than the task of getting me ready for bed?" 1. "Hi, Liz, it's your bedtime. Time to brush your teeth and get on those pajamas. I'll help you." 2. "Time for bed. Lights out in 15 minutes. Let's hurry up and get those teeth brushed and jammies on." 3. "Hi, Liz, how are you feeling tonight? If you're ready, I can help you get your toothbrush in your pajamas. Is that okay?" What do you think the answer is? For now, let's choose answer 3. Liz says, "Thank you for greeting me by my name and asking how I am. That makes me feel happier about getting help with some of the things that I used to be able to do alone." Then we'll continue to the next part of this story. Liz goes to the bathroom and passes stool. You know that she will need help with wiping due to her shoulder and arm strength from a fall she had. You knock on the door and Liz says, "Come in." Liz asks, "What is the best way to approach me to help with this very intimate kind of personal care?" 1. You grab the toilet paper and try to get done as fast as possible. It smells, and you figure Liz would rather you get it over with quickly too. 2. You touch Liz gently on the shoulder and ask her if she is finished. When she says yes, you help her wipe and make sure that she's clean. What do you think the right response is? Let's say we go with the second option. That's correct. Liz says, "Thank you for helping me get clean while helping me maintain my dignity at the same time. Giving me a look or touch that lets me know it's okay to need help with this makes me feel better." As you can see, this is a common scenario that nearly every direct care worker faces. This is an important opportunity to think through how we can be person-directed, even in the most intimate kinds of care opportunities with elders. Now we'll move on to the next scenario. You had taken pajamas out of the dresser when you were in earlier. Then a colleague needed help with the transfer of an elder. You come back and Liz is still sitting on her bed, still in her clothes. Liz asks, "How can you help me get my pajamas on in a way that makes me feel good and relaxed as I am getting ready to sleep?" Number 1, "Okay, let's get these pajamas on. It's getting so late, you must be tired." 2, "I'm going to bring you the chamomile tea that you always like at bedtime, right after you get your pajamas. So let's go ahead and do that now." 3, "Sorry you had to wait, Liz. Are these the pajamas that you want? Also, I can bring you your bedtime tea if you feel ready for that." We know Liz pretty well, and we know she likes chamomile tea. That sounds good. Let's go with the second response. Not quite. Liz says, "I'm glad you're thinking about my favorite tea, but I'd prefer if you ask if I want it. Plus, those aren't the pajamas that I want to wear tonight. The fabric feels scratchy." As you can see, it's not always 100% obvious what the right answer is. That is because communicating in a way that is person-directed often means very subtle differences in the way you talk with elders. Let's try again. And this time, we'll select option 3. Now Liz says, "Thank you for asking. I actually want my purple pajamas. They are so comfy, not like these scratchy ones. I'm not ready for my tea yet because I'm not sleepy, but I'll get into bed and read now." Thanks for participating. This is just one short example of an activity your learners would experience in the PDLC. Now, after your learners have completed all of the badge content, they will unlock the instructor-led training session module, allowing them to sign up for a time to have an hour-long session with Center for Innovation staff. These sessions will emphasize the learning outcomes and most important concepts from the certificate, as well as give learners the opportunity to learn with and from other direct care staff across the country who are also taking this course. This is something that studies show makes learning stick, and another thing that makes EmpowerED uniquely interactive. Now we're going to take a look at the manager experience. As the manager or supervisor, you have the option to interact with your learners in class discussions that happen with each badge. Learners will be posting their reactions to their learning and answering questions as they progress through the badge content. When they post, you'll get a notification, and then you can respond to them if you wish. Your learner will be able to see your post in the discussion board. And if you or your learners get stuck as you go, please go to the help section on the left-hand side. You can ask questions there, or look in the frequently asked questions section to see how to troubleshoot common issues. See this one for an example. Also, on the learner section of the course, you can see exactly where each one of your learners are in the course at all times and see which badges they have gotten. Now that you've had a chance to see the engaging activities and reporting options for managers and learners, let's take a look at the website. Here's the main page of the website. From here, you can try a free demo of the course, and I would really recommend that you take a moment after this call to do so. It'll take you less than 10 minutes, and you can see for yourself just how interactive and meaningful this course is. You will be able to try out a part of the Building Blocks badge. Now we're back on the main page for EmpowerED. You can get to the catalog by clicking up on this tab, and here you can see our catalog and currently offered courses, as well as some of our future ones. You can see the modules that are a part of the PDLC here, and you can see that the course also comes with a certificate. When you're ready to purchase, click on the blue button, and you can purchase one seat for yourself or multiple seats for your team by selecting the total number of learners from the drop-down menu and by checking the button labeled "For Someone Else." If you have a coupon, you can press Apply Coupon and type in the code, and afterward you'll be prompted to fill out your information and create an account, including your organization name, role, your email address, and your address. After you check out, you'll be on the Purchases screen. If you want to enroll in the course yourself, click Enroll, and to send seats to your colleagues or team, click on Bulk Email. You can get your team started easily just by adding all of their email addresses. And once you press Send, all your learners need to do is click the link, create an account, and they'll be ready to start learning. It's so easy. We hope that this brief introduction to EmpowerED has gotten you excited about all that the PDLC has to offer, and I just really want to recommend that you take a look at the demo on the EmpowerED website just to see how engaging this course is for yourself. And also keep a lookout in your email for an FAQ and more information heading your way. I'm going to turn it back over to Marla now.
All right, thank you so much, Ella. Great overview of the course. I'd love for people, if you have questions, to go ahead and put it in the Q&A tab right now. I'm going to do a final poll on kind of future needs. So this is one that you can select all that apply. So when you think about future training needs at your organization, which of these are elements in which you say, yes, we definitely have this as a training need? So dementia training, communication skills, teamwork and team building, conflict resolution, skill building, doing a kind of PDLC part 2, so person-directed living part 2, or other. And if you have an other, definitely put that in the chat box. So once we get the results of that poll, then we're going to spend time on Q&A if there are questions. So I hope that you take a minute to think about what questions do you have, either about learning in general, about EmpowerED, about this course. Janet, go ahead and close it whenever it looks like there's been good participation numbers. All right, so kind of a mixture, probably. It looks like top need is dementia training, followed by teamwork and team building, with communication, conflict resolution, and then the PDLC part 2. And a few of you put other, so I'll see if there's anything in the chat box. So if there's a different kind of content need that you have, please type that in the chat box. And while that's happening, I'm going to invite the other panelists to come on screen, and we'll take any questions. I see that some have come in through the chat box, and it looks like Erin is answering some of those. So there was a question, I'll go through these as well. Compatible devices. As Erin answered, all of the device, it's compatible with all devices. And it's a mobile-friendly platform. So we did pilot testing with laptops or desktops, as well as tablets and cell phones. There's a question on cost. Cost is $99 per learner. We have bulk discounts. That's for 3 months worth of access. And we believe that, just how Carla was describing how you would have, you could do that short form or sit down for a badge. It really is about, 15 minutes of content per week would get you through the course in 3 months. Questions, comment on the graphics, link for the demo. Miriam, nice to see your name out there. It's been a while. I would say, this course, as I mentioned, was built on Greenhouse Core Values and Pioneer Network principles. I think that it has, if you, and I could go back to the slide, I'll pull it up a second to look at the course content. When you think about greenhouse homes, small house homes, I think there's a lot of application. We've designed it so that it's for traditional nursing homes, assisted living, memory care sites. Here's the content areas once again, so that building blocks, that person before task, relationship, and deep knowing. We really start off with ageism and having people to understand what are stereotypes and what's the impact of ageism. Then you have the creating home badge, which looks at what does it mean to have a real home. We talk about the power of normal. So some of these concepts will seem familiar to people: simple pleasures, retained abilities. Talk about that dignity of risk and how do we help care partners to be able to understand the balance of the upside of risk and the downside of risk, the importance of elder choice, and how our comfort level, our risk tolerance level might be much lower much lower than someone else's. And it's really about appreciating what their particular individual risk tolerance is. And then you see the other topics in engaging the heart, and then that working together. I'm going to see what other questions have come up. So Carla, Ella, feel free to chime in.
I would say, I think I see one that asks about the staff and the learning platform and the feedback of staff, and they found it easy to use. I'm going to say with the age of a lot of the staff being younger, they love having e-learning on their phone. They prefer that over going to a workstation or even a tablet. So it is really easy for all different learners, and it just is easy to maneuver and continue on. So it is very user-friendly.
Thank you. There was a question about what is the badge. So it's the way that we've broken down the content into different areas. So there are 4 badges within each badge. There's about 3 modules, and that's that 10 to 15 minutes of content. So each badge is about an hour, close to an hour's worth of content, maybe a little bit less. For those that like the gamification and the point system that are they're a little more driven by that, about earning points or maybe having that competitive side, there is that element. So you earn points for completing a module, a badge, for commenting in the forums, But that's how those badges work. And it's the 4 badges that make up the certificate. It generally is going to take about 3 hours to get through the self-paced module. And then as Ella described, there will be that longer, 45 minutes to an hour instructor-led live session, just like many of the Zoom trainings that you've experienced before. I think we are about at time. We'll look at if other questions. Oh, the one other question I saw came in is, who is this for? I would say that it is geared towards those that care for elders in long-term care. So certainly CNAs, but also I think nurses, could be med techs, could be housekeeping, dietary. So it's anyone that really has the opportunity to interact with elders. With that, I'm going to turn it back over to Penny, and I will share my screen once again.
Well, thank you so much, Carla, Marla, Ella, with your help, Erin. Thank you so much for providing all this information. And I just want to encourage you, if anyone has any questions, please reach out to us. As I said at the beginning, we'll be sending out the recording and the slides tomorrow. But if you have any questions, please reach out. So just a few things. If you are interested in EmpowerED, EmpowerED, Marla just had the slide up and Erin provided the link in the chat as well. But we want to tell you about 2 more exciting things that we have going on. The first is coming up June 6th and 7th, and this is a greenhouse development workshop. One of the things we've learned with the greenhouse model is that it so helps to see it. And this is an opportunity to not only see it, but really hear about the development, the financing, all of those types of things. So if you're interested, please go to our website, thegreenhouseproject.org. You can click on the workshop tab for more information. And then last, we hope that this isn't the first time you've heard about our upcoming first Center for Innovation Conference that's powered by Pioneer Network and the Greenhouse Project. We're really providing the best of both organizations, plus even beyond that, providing new opportunities at our Ready to Impact conference. That's July 23rd through 26th in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. And again, there's a special page dedicated to this on our website. Please go there. We have our program, all the amazing presenters, from our keynote to general sessions to concurrent sessions, pre-cons and intensives. You'll find all the information there. Again, it's thegreenhouseproject.org. I want to thank all of you for being with us today. Please continue to look at your inbox for all of our email announcements. And again, thanks to all of our presenters. Hope you have a great day.
Thanks, Benny.